Hey, welcome to Lab 5, Scale Applications in Azure Kubernetes Service. I'm an Azure Administrator, as well as an Azure Solutions Architect. If you have watched the 4 other labs, you now have a working Kubernetes cluster in AKS, and you have deployed the sample Azure voting app. In this lab, part 5 of 7, you will scale out the pods in the app and try pod auto-scaling. You'll also learn how to scale the number of Azure VM nodes to change the cluster's capacity for hosting workloads. In this lab, you will learn how to scale the Kubernetes nodes, manually scale the Kubernetes pods that run your application, and configure auto-scaling pods that run the app front end. Hey, welcome to Lab 5 of the series. First thing we want to do is just to take a quick look at our pods, and we should have two, one running a front end and one running a back end. What we want to do is increase the number of pods running our front end by 1 to 5, and we're going to do that here with this command. Replicas equals 5 Azure vote front. So you can see Azure vote front. All right, let's give it a shot. And then we'll run our get pods to check out the status. You can see we got some containers creating. We have additional pods running. It's excellent. Still creating. Still creating our last two here. Okay, now you can see after about 3 minutes, we now have 5 pods running compared to our 2 from earlier. Now, one of the neat features of Kubernetes, it supports horizontal pod auto-scaling. So we just did this manually. So our next step is to configure so Kubernetes will auto-scale based on CPU metric. For this to work, or in order to use the autoscaler, all containers in your pods, and your pods must have some CPU requests and limits defined. And this is usually done in a YAML file. So we're going to go ahead and create a YAML file for our autoscaling process. Okay, so what I've done is I opened up our favorite code editor, or at least our favorite free code, Visual Studio Code, and I pasted in this sample YAML file. Notice the kind is horizontal pod autoscaler. I gave it a name, and notice that I said the max replicas to have are 10, minimum is 3, and based on 50% of the target CPU utilization. So what's going to happen is we're currently at 5. Once we deploy this, our minimum was 3. So over time, since our CPU is really doing nothing, it should roll it back down to 3. So pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and do a file. Save that into my directory here. Call it Azure vote HPA YAML. All right, we can minimize that. Go back to our PowerShell. Now, if you didn't want to do it via the YAML file, here is the command to do it using kubectl. So I'll do the same exact thing as I'm doing the YAML. I'm just using the YAML file here, and here I'm using kubectl. So let me come down here and change to my correct directory. Go to the screen. Now I'm going to use the YAML file. Okay, if you want to see the status of the HPA, highlight that command and click, here we go. Now what we should see over some time, use the get pods command, and we should go from 5 to 3. So I'm going to hit pause on the video, maybe grab something to eat, and then come back on this and check it a little later. As you can see, I ran the get pods and we lost 3 of the pods. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our auto scaling is working quite well. Now what we did here was we increased the number of pods, not the number of nodes. So we still have 2 nodes running. So to increase the number of nodes, we're going to run this command. I need to modify it for my resource group. So that's going to be aks.-reg. And I'm going to run the command. I must have typed the resource group incorrect. I also have the cluster name incorrect. There we go. There we go, that should do it. I'll go ahead and clear the screen. Run the command. You can see I ran into a quota issue here. You can ask Microsoft to increase your quota. I ran into a quota of core GPUs allowed. I go check out my subscription. I went to the subscriptions, uses and quotas. You can see I'm only allowed total region of 4 CPUs. I'm using all of those. But that is the correct command. I could go ahead and ask for an increase. I don't think it's worth it just because the command would work. That's how you increase the pods or the nodes. You can also increase the nodes by going to the actual cluster itself here in the portal, node pools, and change the value here as well. And notice that there's an auto scale here as well. All right. Well, that ends this lab. So what we did was we learned how to manually scale Kubernetes pods that run our application, configure auto scaling pods that run the app front end, and manually scale the Kubernetes nodes. On the next lab, we're going to go ahead and upgrade our version of Kubernetes. As always, thanks for watching.